Good morning, everybody. Today, I wanted to bring something to your attention. You see, I had made a video previously about the Eldritch Knight and some of the changes, and I had claimed that the Eldritch Knight is really fun to play, awesome for leveling, but kind of falls off in the endgame because the added damage you get from all of the elemental synergies and stuff doesn't scale with critical damage, you don't get as much physical, and honestly, you just don't end up doing as much damage as a lot of other real melee characters. I also made another video about the revamped Palemaster, in which I said that the Palemaster's super duper strong, really high DCs, and makes you a super strong DC caster with a lot of additional healing, tankiness, and just overall durability to make you a very, very desirable character in the endgame. So I thought to myself, hey, what if I combine these two ideas? What if I take the survivability and the tankiness of the undead form, as well as some of the additional damage you get, and combine that with the Eldritch Knight to make some type of amalgam that will overcome the downsides of the Eldritch Knight not having quite enough damage and clean up the endgame. Much like smearing chocolate sauce all over a pizza, it didn't actually work out as much as I had wanted to. So it's still pretty good. The survivability of combining these two trees works really well, and it was a dream to level. I enjoyed the fact that I could just not have to play as a Warforged and still be able to heal myself. Once you have negative energy burst as well as the death aura, you're able to heal very, very effectively. Although before you actually get death aura, negative energy burst, I don't recommend using negative form or the undead form. I just stay regular form, use cleric hirelings or whatever until you get to level 7, and then just melee stuff down. So the leveling was absolutely solid, essentially running into no problems running in Reaper 3 throughout the leveling process because you just have so much extra healing from all the negative amp and the raw healing you get. On top of that, if you run into a pinch, you could just cast negative energy burst, heal yourself for most of the damage, and also damage a lot of the nearby enemies. So overall, it ended up working out really well. Like, the leveling process was just a dream. It was, in fact, probably, I don't want to say better because I was playing as a Warforged last time I tried the Eldritch Knight, but the leveling process, it was pretty comparable, and it was really nice. Leveling through epics was actually even easier with the revamped epic destinies. Oh my goodness gracious, you can do so much damage if you're with your spells. If you play in Draconic Incarnation, you get so many crazy DCs if you play in Magister. And for the most part, I was playing this character as a Draconic Incarnation in the endgame because I thought to myself, well, I want to be hitting stuff really hard, I want to be critting, and I was kind of figuring out the gearing stuff, and I kind of ran into a problem. And the problem I ran into is that while trying to cast as many spells as possible in melee combat, I kind of lost sight as to what the character was supposed to be. I ended up spending a lot of raid fights just trying to cast spells using my energy burst, my dragon breath, vortex, as well as meteor swarm and other spells, as opposed to just hitting the monsters with my melee attacks. I didn't really have a lot of melee power being a Draconic Incarnation, which meant my melee damage wasn't that high with the base damage, and any situation in which a monster had any resistance, well, guess what? I ran into the same problem I had before. 0 damage. Fighting some demons, 0 damage with all of your additional elemental damage per hit. It occurred to me I needed to make a change and make an adjustment, and I tried out a bunch of different things, and the direction I ended up going with was Fatesinger? Yeah, Fatesinger. It ended up being kind of like the saving grace for this build and the glue that I needed to kind of bring everything together. Fatesinger's really interesting because its cores are phenomenal. Like, they're bizarrely good. 10 melee power per level, 10 universal spell power per level, no arcane spell failure, plus to all of your stats, applying sonic vulnerability on hit every time you hit monsters, and an extra 25 spell power for the last core. That means by just being in Fatesinger, you get 60 melee power and 85 universal spell power. That's pretty nice. On top of that, all of the bard spell abilities affect yourself, so the ballad aura stuff, it all affects you, so you get the extra plus to hit and damage. Give yourself an extra +6 to hit and damage just straight out of that tree. Bonus saves, bonus armor class, bonus dodge chance. You can get access to Martial Hymn, and then as you get closer to the top tier, you're able to pick up things like Intensify for free, increasing the damage of all of your spells and your own personal aura, as well as increasing the attack speed that you get and adding a little bit of extra damage based on Sonic, based on your spell power from Blade Song. The Epic Moment as well, Turn the Tide, gives you a little bit of damage, although I don't know, it says that there's no, or I don't know where there's a save. There's apparently a save where monsters are reducing the damage that you deal by half, but I can't figure out exactly where that comes from. But suffice to say, while Turn the Tide is active, your base melee damage is absolutely monstrous. And all of a sudden, it becomes the kind of character where you want to be spending time meleeing monsters as opposed to just standing aiming back and casting spells. Once I swapped into Featsinger, the character just started to feel really, really good, and it made me want to make another adjustment. Originally, I'd taken the capstone so I could have both of the death auras, the regular death aura and the greater death aura, but after doing some extensive testing, it seems like greater death aura is coded the same, or at least very, very similar. Like, the damage is just straight up wrong on the actual spell, and it does not do the damage it's supposed to be doing, because the amount of healing I got from each one was roughly the same, when the greater death aura is supposed to be healing for more than 50% more. So I figured, hey, if I just drop the capstone, drop that aura, I can pick up the extra stuff, the capstone, out of the Eldritch Knight tree, save myself some points, and get a little bit more of that melee damage going. After that adjustment, the character actually becomes a competent melee, being able to hit over 200 hit chance, and then grabbing a whole bunch of other defensive abilities, getting over 250 physical resistance rating, among other things, once my character is going to be fully geared. So I'm really looking forward to getting everything working. On top of that, I also made a couple swaps so that I could get extra shield bashes with my orb. Orbs are weird in that they use intelligence to hit and charisma to damage, but I don't really care about the damage that the orb deals when I shield bash with it. I just care about the fact that it's propagating my additional damage. On top of that, because I actually add sonic vulnerability to the monsters by hitting them as a Featsinger, the Blade Song 2d6s, which is not very much, is amped up a little bit, and on top of that, I took Scion of the Feywild, which gives me an extra 2d20s of sonic damage. And since pretty much all of my spell power is universal, I have a lot of every spell power, so my sonic spell power is no slouch, sitting somewhere around 600 just all the time, because why not? All in all, I'm still not finished gearing out the character, and I'll make another follow-up video to see after we've completed all of the endgame content, gone through the raids and everything, and seen exactly what the character is supposed to be capable of. But so far, it's been an extremely fun and easy leveling experience. Important note is that this character did get made as a Sun Elf. I don't think that's necessary. I just wanted to get extra intelligence and also extra hit chance, because Sun Elves are elves, meaning they get 2% hit chance for each of the cores, and they also get extra intelligence. You could probably just play this character as an elf and miss out on 2 intelligence. It's not as that big of a deal, but the 2% hit chance for me personally was kind of a big deal. If I had more points I could spend, especially my racial tree, I would have picked up a total of 6% extra hit chance and been very, very comfortable. It was really fun. It was super easy to level, and I recommend that if you haven't had the opportunity to try it, Pale Knight was really good. I did take Lich form mostly because I found that Lich form, just gives you the defenses that you need in the extra healing amplification. The Incorporeality from Wraith form is probably a lot more useful for this type of character, or even potentially some of the stunning effects that you can get out of the Vampire form, but I didn't go for the top tier of the Palemaster tree, so I figured Vampire form wasn't going to give me as many things as I would have wanted. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say about the character for now. I'm going to run through the endgame and maybe give you guys a little bit of a sample to see how this is supposed to go, but in the meantime, I'll give it up to me to just show you how I built the character, so if you want to try this yourself, you can do it. So here we have it, the Necro Knight, as I like to call it. I'm also going to take this opportunity to gloat just a tiny, tiny little bit, because I do happen to have my Reaper companion here. I got that 5 or the 20 Reaper points on the hardcore server. So I got the Blood Wraith. Looks pretty cool. I will be making a video about the hardcore server overall, like a review of the whole thing later on in the future. But we're going to talk about that later. But anyway, let's get into the build. So this is the Necro Knight. What makes up a Necro Palemaster? Well, sorry, Palemaster who also does like Eldritch Knight stuff. Well, it's a little combination of the two things. So I originally started with this character by going 41 points in Palemaster so I could pick up the Embrace the Void, and then spending 40 or I guess 39 points in Eldritch Knight just so I could get the bare minimum of the tier 5s that you need to be a melee. And what ended up happening is I would spend so much time casting spells instead of actually, attacking monsters with melee attacks. And I kind of realized, hey, I shouldn't have any of the points in the Eldritch Knight tree with the way I'm playing my character. So I decided to retool it, because I know for a fact that you can play a decently effective Evocation Wizard. But that's not what I was trying to play. What I was trying to play was a Palemaster Eldritch Knight. So I took some points out of the Palemaster tree. I got rid of these 2 cores. I basically shaved off 15 points out of this tree, put more into Harper Agent so I could actually get intelligence to damage to increase my damage output quite a bit. I also decided to use strategic combat here so I could spend some more points in the Eldritch Knight tree. So I'd make sure I get like shield bashing among other things. And yeah, seems to be okay. So the damage is pretty good on this character. Fairly strong. I'm able to get my intelligence to damage. So just from like the base stats are at plus 93. When I actually turn on all my different individual buffs, I've got the Knight's Transformation as well as the Lich form here. We're plus 158 to hit. This is not with it. This is missing all of our buffs. In actual combat, it's usually closer to about 190, while sneak attacking it's about over 200. So that's good enough for me. On top of that, we have the additional hit chance. Now this character, I do end up having my base stats as a pure wizard. I've got a 91 intelligence right now. I have 0 filigree, And I'm still missing a couple other things. So this character is going to have about 100 intelligence all said and done. And I realized that I kind of screwed up my feats a little bit. This character originally was going to be using the Arcane Pulse ability here. But Arcane Pulse doesn't give me the stats that I need for what I want to do, so I think I might swap this out into something else that's a little bit more melee focused, like Dire Charge. Might do a little bit better, but we'll see as we go along there. Anyway, these are my character stats. When I'm actually in combat with all of my buffs on, so getting, the Greater Heroism on, other stuff. My reflex save, I have insightful reflexes, so my reflex save is fairly... Oh, do I have insightful reflexes? Reflex? Here we go, yeah. Insightful reflexes, a bunch of the saves here. But yeah, my defenses are fairly good. Again, I'm still missing a couple items. We're going to get the magic resistance rating around 80, and the physical resistance rating will be around 100, or sorry, about 220. I'm just missing a couple things here. 220, 230, depending on where you actually get your stats from. So as far as this character, I started out, I have a little bit of strength just because I was originally going to use strength to damage on this character without taking intelligence to damage. That ended up being not a great idea. So we went with the intelligence to damage here. So intelligence being the most important stat. You don't need any other stats. It's just intelligence, constitution, and strength. You obviously want to have some charisma so that way you can use like scrolls, raise scrolls, and the like. That's about it. As far as the skills went, you're a wizard. You get a lot of different skills from your intelligence. The core ones are heal and spellcraft. Outside of that, it doesn't matter. I took stuff like concentration and search, although I always have quicken on, so I don't really care about concentration at all. As far as the feat progression, this character is a single weapon fighter, so you want to make sure you're taking single weapon fighting from your combat styles. So I've got single weapon fighting improved, and did I not take greater single weapon fighting? Really? You're definitely supposed to take greater single weapon fighting. I have no idea what I took instead. Holy smokes. That explains why I don't do as much damage as I want to do. I'm missing 10% attack speed. Anyway. So yeah, take greater single weapon fighting. What did I take instead? I took Wellspring of Power. Yeah, replace Wellspring of Power with greater single weapon fighting. Holy guacamole, dude. I can't believe I did that. Wow. So you learn something when you go back through. I don't know how I missed that. Anyway, we did take slashing weapons, or improved critical slashing, and Knight's Training. The plan with this character is actually to use the Soul Razor Longsword. I don't have the Soul Razor Longsword at the moment just because I haven't had I have everything else I need. I just need the Sword Black Razor to drop, and I've ransacked it once without getting a drop, so we'll try again later. But for now, we're running with the Hellstroke Heavy Mace, which is nice because it has impact. It basically gives me improved critical bludgeoning with this weapon, which is really nice, and it does a decent amount of damage, so it could be worse. Although I don't have my filigrees in here, and this is not as good as Soul Razor, which we will be getting at some point in the future, so that's kind of important to the process. But yeah, so as far as feats go, you want to take all the melee feats, Knight's Training, because I'm going to be using long swords, improve single weapon fighting. I get proficiency, so I don't really care about actually taking any proficiency from anywhere else. I do get the proficiency just from the Eldritch Knight tree, which is kind of good. As far as epic feats go, I think the reason why I messed up and I didn't take greater single weapon fighting is because I kind of like made this character as I went, and I didn't plan it out. But you can't take greater until you get to epics because of the base attack bonus requirement, so I should have taken it at 21. I think I took Wellspring of Power by mistake, so I'll have to fix that at some point to change that back. Now, as far as spells go, you don't really use any of these spells. The only ones that you use, you're going to use Necrotic Ray sometimes because it's going to hit decently hard. You're going to be using a lot of the buff spells like Death Aura for a buff, Haste, Rage, Displacement. I use Chill Touch just because it allows you to penetrate the resistance of monsters. So if there's an undead that doesn't take negative energy damage, you can Chill Touch it for really cheap, really quick, and then throw on whatever higher damage spell you want. You mostly just use the spells up here, and if I'm being totally honest, I pretty much exclusively use Meteor Swarm, Rend the Soul, Hold Monster Mass, and sometimes Wail in combat, but pretty much nothing else. Everything else is just for show. I never use Fireball or Autolukes or anything like that. I'm a melee character. I don't really want to cast spells. Now, as far as the enhancements go, I do have 1 point in Morning Lord. I have an extra 8 racial, so I put the Keen Senses. It doesn't matter, but I just want this 2% extra chance to hit. Again, 12 points in Harp Agent just to pick up the strategic combat. Out of Palemaster, I wanted to make sure I got all of the negative energy crit because that is my own healing. I wanted the bypass so monsters could take damage from my aura while I'm standing next to them, the intelligence, and of course I wanted to make sure I took the 15% cold absorption so you don't take extra damage from light, as well as incorporeal mischance so that way I'm more defensive in melee combat. And out of Eldritch Knight, it's a pretty standard Eldritch Knight tree, picking up the improved Mage Armor and Shield, the Arcane Siphon, as well as the action boost for the additional universal spell power and melee power, all the cores, and then we did take Shield Striking, so that when I strike with my orb, you'll see the orb see that shield icon there? That means I'm actually doing a Shield Bash, and I have a lot of Shield Bash chance thanks to the fact that it scales off of my intelligence, although the damage doesn't. The hit chance does. So the orb is 143 to hit, which is fine because it's just going to add my elemental damage on hit. So pretty basic stuff with that. And then finally, I wanted to go over the Fatesinger. So this is the Fatesinger tree that I decided to use. I'm currently twisting in Imperium Magic, Enchantment Specialist, Precise Evocation, and Endless Faith. I might change up some of these twists at some point, but the core stuff out of here, I do pick up First Harmonic Chord as well as the Third Harmonic Chord because it gives Healing Amp and past physical resistance rating, so 6 physical resistance rating and 20 negative Healing Amp, which is just good for 3 points. But we also pick up Bound Fate, which means I can apply this 12% vulnerability to all forms of damage from myself, as well as all of my allies, which is really good. So I can be like the debuffer in the raid. You pick up Rain, because Rain just gives you extra damage when you Vorpal a guy, which is kind of cool. I have Siren Song. You don't need any of these things. These all have no effect on your character, so I just picked something. So I don't actually use this, just so you know. It's just so I can get to the next tier. Martial Hymn is important because it gives you 10 melee power as well as physical magical resistance rating, hit points, among other stats. And then up here at the top, this is where we start getting into the bread and butter. This is where we get the 5th Harmonic Chord, which is +2 to all DCs, spell tactical feats, immunity to blindness, and true seeing. We also grab Masquerade for 10% spell cost reduction because it's a good 1-pointer, and Blade Song, another good 1-pointer for the extra spell power. And then top of the tier here, you grab Greater Shout for 1 point, you grab Intensify for 1 point, and you grab Turn of the Tide for 1 point. So all of this stuff together costs quite a bit, and you're spending a bunch of points down here, but that's okay because it all comes out to being even. So this is kind of how the character works. As far as what I do when I'm physically in combat, a lot of it is, you know, maybe opening up with a spell, casting Arcane Siphon, or hitting guys with Arcane Siphon because it adds extra damage, using Eldritch Strike whenever I get the opportunity in combat, because when you get 5 charges of Eldritch Strike, it activates the Eldritch Blade, which gives you 10% extra weapon damage, as well as some more Spell Sword dice, which is really, really powerful for your character. Try to get that off as often as possible. Generally, I like to use the Spell Sword Fire, because this character is rocking the Burn Scar Sash for now. This may change, but this is essentially what I'm doing. As far as some of the other items and things that go into this character does use a couple raid items. This is not the cheapest and easiest character to gear out. So just to start, we've got the Attunement Gaze, which gives Spell Focus Mastery and Insightful Spell Focus Mastery, because I didn't have anything that was going to be able to do that as a melee. I'm also using the Silver Dragon Scale Helmet, which is an item that pretty much nobody has ever used before, that gives both accuracy and deadly, and it's got the extra resistance to get cold. This is where I get my accuracy and my deadly from. We're using the Key of Rukon Drawl for the artifact to get the Insightful, Accuracy, Deadly, and the Intelligence. We're also using... This is the Echo of the Icon. I'm using this temporarily because I needed something for strength. But I will be replacing this with a Slave Lord's Trinket that will give me my physical magical resistance rating that I need. We have the Mantle of Fury, which is odd because this character doesn't have a Constitution item from anywhere else, but this gives also Double Strike and Dodge, which is pretty cool considering the armor piece that I'm wearing has a maximum dexterity bonus of 12, so we're at pretty much our cap dodge all of the time, which is nice. So yes, this character is at 12% dodge, which is pretty slick. The Burn Scar Sash, as I said. We got the Shattered Onyx, which is crafted, so we've got the Insightful Dodge and the Profane Spell Focus, as well as the Spinneret for the Quality Spell Focus Mastery. So we have Spell Focus Mastery, Insightful, Profane, and Quality, as much Spell Focus Mastery as possible, minus Filigrees, which I do not have at the moment. I went to Skin Tight Gloves because it's for the set, Necromancer Bracers, and the Blackmail for the Dreadkeeper set, which you need for the negative crit chance. This is mostly for the healing and keeping yourself alive. It may potentially be possible to use that Profane Experimenter set to better effectiveness, but we'll see how that goes. And then finally I have the Sunken Slippers, give myself Insightful Potency and Quality Potency. As well, Quality Intelligence 5, and then I have the offhand, the Stygian Wrath, which gives me Insightful Intelligence 10, and then of course Insightful Nullification and Lore. So this character, just walking around, happens to have a decently high amount of universal spell power. Yeah, with Force being around 600, my Fire and my Acid, so Fire being 766, my Negative being 860, just standing around. And then once I actually get into dungeons, I'm fighting monsters because of the active buffs I give myself. I get about 100 additional active universal spell power, so my Negative is close to 1,000. My Fire is about 850 or so, so it's not too bad with some of that. As well, my negative crit sits at 73%, and it's the only crit chance I really care about. I don't care about too much about any of the other spell crit chances. pretty much just the negative, and keeping this as high as possible for my self-healing. I do use Empyrean Magic, which whenever I hit somebody with a fire spell, specifically Meteor Swarm, which counts as multiple hits, I get multiple stacks, which gives me more spell power as well as more crit chance, so it kind of comes together to make it so that my aura is healing me for quite a bit. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for the character right now. I'm going to do, if you're looking for an item build, I'll put a link in the description. I don't have the full build sorted out yet because I'm still making adjustments to it. So next video I make about this character, I will have a full build for you guys. But this is kind of how I would build it as of right now. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you had a fantastic time. You want to try out this character, give it a shot. I enjoyed leveling it. It's just the endgame gearing that is kind of, I got to make a few adjustments and try some things to see how stuff is going to work. Other than that, that's pretty much all I got. So thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys next video. See you later.